Shalom Aleichem. Mishnah Yomi continues in chapter 1 of Sukkah. Mishnah Hey, Chavile Kosh, bundles of straw. There's tied up straw, like a haystack here. But Chavile Eitzim, or of sticks. Chavile Zrodin, or bundles of cane. Ein Misachin Behem. We don't use them as Sechach. Now the Barter explains these items are kosher Sechach. They grow from the ground. They're not Mekabel Tumah. The issue here is that these are bundles that are commonly placed on top of a shack or a shed to dry out. So somebody might put his bundle of straw up on the roof of the sukkah just to dry out, not to use it as sechach, not to use it to cause shade for the structure underneath. And then it's getting close to sukkah time, and he says, oh yeah, I've got that shack out back, and there's a bunch of hay on the roof. I'll decide to make that my sukkah. And we have a problem again we mentioned yesterday of taseh velomina asui. You have to actively make the sukkah, not just decide that's your sukkah and it's already made. Remember, we had the case by the vines that are attached to the ground as sechach, that wasn't good sechach. So here too, these bundles, because people commonly put these bundles just to dry out, not to serve as shade, they're not valid as sechach. Chulan, but all of these items, shehitiran kasheot, if you untied them, you unbundled them, so now it's not a bundle of straw anymore, it's not a bundle of sticks anymore, of bamboo anymore, it's just a bunch of bamboo on the roof, it's not a bundle, it would be kosher, he's done an action to make it suitable to cause shade for the area underneath. The kulan and everything, and this refers back, the partner explains, to all of the other materials, sticks and stones and kalim, etc., that are not kosher l'schach, kulan kasher l'dofnot. They can all be walls. The Rabbi explains sukkah is the same lashon, the same shorish as schach. The schach is the wall, is the roof. So really, the walls are less critical than the roof. You need walls, as we've seen. You need 2 walls and a little bit more, but the walls aren't the critical part. The schach is the critical part. So these requirements of gedulei karka and not mekabel tuma, this applies to the schach. Great. On to Mishnah Vav. Misachkin binisarim. We can use boards as our schach. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir oser. Rabbi Meir says you can't. And the Bartner explains based on the Gemara, also the Gemara in Daf 14. They say that they agree if this is a big board, if it's a large board, if it's 4 tfachim wide, which is a very chashuv space. 4 tfachim is already that's a pretty big board, Rabosai. They agree that's definitely possible at 4 tfachim. And they all agree that less than 3 tefachim wide, that's kosher, because there's sticks and logs and naturally occurring schach the same size, where the disagree is between 3 and 4. So between 3 and 4 tefachim wide, Rabbi Yehuda says it's still kosher as schach, it's still like branches, and Rabbi Meir says no, it's chashuv, it's like boards, and there's something called a gezerah tikra. It looks like your roof. People often use boards this big for the roof, and they go out in their sukkah, and the roof of the sukkah looks like the roof inside, and they say, what am I doing in the sukkah for? So the Mishnah goes on here, and now this is going to be interesting. Natan alecha neser shu rachavar bat tfachim. Someone placed a board on top of his sukkah that was indeed 4 tfachim wide. Kishera, it's still kosher. Bilvad shelo yishan tachtav, but you can't sleep under that area. Now this is interesting because we just said that both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir agree that using a 4 tefach wide board, it's a pretty big board, is pasul as schach. So the Mefarshim in the Gemara, they explain here that what's going on is you could be putting this wide board, this 4 tefach wide chashuv board, on the very edge of your sukkah. And at the very edge, it can be looked at, we'll see, as an extension of the wall, something called a dofin akuma, a leaning wall. It's not just for the Tower of Pisa, it also applies in the sukkah. If there's pasul schach on one edge of one wall, you could view that pasul schach as an extension of the wall that's just sort of bent over, as long as the rest of the sukkah is the requisite size. The Mefarshim bring another possibility is if your sukkah is big enough and it has 4 walls, then placing this big 4 tefach board down the middle of the sukkah effectively splits your big sukkah into 2 mini sukkahs. And each one of them has 3 kosher walls and has 7 by 7 tefachim in size. They'd both be kosher, even though there's pasul schach right in the middle of it with this big board. Now, you can't sleep under the board. It'd be the same din for eating. It's under this space is not really kosher as a sukkah because it's not really schach because everyone agrees this board is too big to be valid schach. Yasher koach and sei gesund.